are professors Dina Šukar and Milena Apić from Serbia, and they will present their new book, Music Starter, a new method of learning how to read music, logical problems, games, and short stories for beginners.
We would like to welcome you to our presentation. This presentation is going to be delivered in English, but before we begin, we would just like to wish a warm welcome to the audiences in Serbia.
Dragi bih da vas pozdravim, da se zahvalim što ste došli na našu prezentaciju. Dina će u prvom delu naše prezentacije objasniti suštinu naše knjige, u drugom delu će pokazati delove naše knjige koje smatramo da su najznačajniji, a nakon prezentacije, ako bude imali vremena, ja se nadam da ćemo imati, mi bismo bili jako radi da, ako imate nekako pitanje, da nam postavite ili još bolje, ako je neko već koristio našu knjižicu, s obzirom da ono upotrebu već godinu dana, da nam kaže neke svoje iskustva i da možda je ovo prilika da razmenimo zapravo iskustva koje će nama biti dragoceno nekom možda dalje radu na sličnoj literaturi. Hvala vam.
My name is Dina Šukar, and I'm going to present a book my colleague, Professor Milena Apić, and I created. The title of the book is Music Starter, and it is intended for young beginners to be used in the first stage of their music education. The format of the book is a little bit unusual. It is a collection of stories, tunes, didactic games, and logic problems. And at the same time, it is a comic book that features 5 main characters and tells a story of their journey through music. And such an unusual format evolved as a result of a study being conducted under the supervision of well-known Serbian authors of non-musical didactic materials, Mr. and Mrs. Krstić. And our collaboration stemmed out of a question Milena and I posed ourselves. And that question was, could we make a book that would enable young beginners to learn how to read music in the sense of acquiring basic music literacy through game playing and problem solving? And what inspired us to articulate this question in the first place for beginning contemporary piano methods that we use in our own teaching, or rather one particular feature they exhibit, and that is the abundance of games and puzzles they contain as a way of testing children's knowledge. So what we notice in our own teaching is the genuine excitement and joy with the children would react to these games and puzzles, even though these were essentially tests of their knowledge. And this inspired us to go one step further and to start entertaining the idea of a possibility of creating a tool for early music instruction that would enable children not only to test, but to acquire knowledge through game playing and problem solving. And what made us believe in the first place that this is possible, but also rather important, is the number of various non-musical didactics, games, books, and toys that have proven successful precisely because of the emphasis they place on the acquisition of knowledge through problem solving and other related activities that encourage children to think. So this group of materials has developed tremendously over the last 30 years and has been subjected to numerous psychological research, and some of the psychological findings tells us that the major feature these materials exhibit is that they focus on orienting students towards something that we could qualify as meaning-making over fact-collecting. What this means, in other words, is that the process of learning is in a way reversed, because the student starts not from understanding and memorizing a particular definition, but these definitions are rather translated and given as thought-provoking situations and problems. And by solving these, the student discovers the meaning of the definition, the meaning of a particular symbol, the information about the new content. And what they also succeed in is to stimulate students to relate their prior knowledge to the new concepts, because they always introduce new information in relation to what student already knows from his past experience. And as a result of such an involved approach, these materials have proven successful, meeting a number of very important goals. Sorry, I'm trying to get this to you. Možda zaista well, I guess take a little break here. We're trying to get this machine to work. I mean, there is just one or two more slides with birds, and then we get the pictures. So these are really important, which is why I really cannot proceed to talk about the book until this computer starts cooperating. I can finish this first part of the presentation. So let me go back to why those materials have proven so successful. The reason lies in the goals that those materials achieve as a result of such an involved approach, and those are related to the immediate learning experience. So first of all, they help children experience learning as an entertaining and creative process. They help them gain deeper level of the comprehension and also retain knowledge they acquired over longer periods of time. But there are two longer lasting goals that they achieve, and one of those is that they stimulate the development of logical thinking, creativity, and imagination. And they also help children shape a system of thinking that they spontaneously and successfully apply to all future learning. So the reason we approached Mr. and Mrs. Krstić is their vast expertise and experience in producing precisely such kind of materials. And what followed can be summarized in 4 steps. We analyzed a great number of piano methods and music theory workbooks and textbooks. We analyzed the methods used in those non-musical didactic materials, and then we applied those methods to musical concepts. And obviously we tested the results we were coming up with in practice. And along the way, we have carefully considered, well, first of all, the opinions and suggestions of our colleagues with whom we have been consulting as well, and also the feedback we received from our students. And actually our students are the most important people behind this project, because this book started evolving not as a book, but it started evolving spontaneously as games we were coming up with for our own teaching, and then only once the set of circumstances arose, we start discussing the idea of maybe collecting them, organizing them, giving them some kind of scientific foundation, and hopefully publishing them as a book. So as a result of all those joint efforts, evolved Music Starter, a book for early music instruction, that will help children learn basic symbols of music notation. Those cover staff, treble and bass clef, notes in the range of 1 below to 1 above the middle C, basic time values such as quarters, quarter notes, half notes, dotted halves, and whole notes, the appropriate rests, the time signatures of 2, 3, and 4 quarters, and basic dynamic markings such as forte, piano, crescendo, and decrescendo. The book is divided into, into 6 chapters, and those chapters are entitled Sound, Keyboard, Volume of Sound, Length of Sound, and Pitch or height of sound. And these first 5 serve as an introduction to reading music. And the 6th chapter, which is entitled Reading Music, Uniting Components, is actually the first chapter in which the tunes appear. So it is this grand finale or grand begin. So once the computer starts collaborating, I will proceed on to show you the selection of pages from the book and explain the methods that we use. Here we go. The first thing. These are our chapters, and this is our selection of images from the chapter number 1 entitled Sound. The purpose of this chapter is to introduce the characters, the subject matter, and the action. And what we see on the illustration here is our main characters depicted in a particular situation. There are 4 children who play the role of teachers, and they're instructing the puppy. They're telling him, prick up your ears and listen carefully. And that's precisely what the puppy does. And he wonders, what will I hear? And what he hears is the sound and its 3 main characteristics: volume, length, and height. And that is what the book is about. The book is about the puppy's discovery of sound, first as a sound per se, and then as a sound of music. So the first chapter focuses child's attention on listening, imagining, and analyzing sound per se through a set of logical problems, and those are the illustrations you can see here. The task is to cross out the illustration that does not belong to the group, and the groups of sounds are loud, soft, low, high, and long and short. The next chapter is entitled Keyboard, and this is the illustration that opens it. In this chapter, a child will acquire a sense of orientation on the keyboard. He will learn what we refer to as the high, the low, and the middle register. He will break the keyboard into individual octaves, and he will learn how to identify the keys by their alphabetical names, and he will achieve all of this successfully and quickly. And I would like you to stop for a moment and think about this illustration, to notice whether the images remind you of something you know. Well, obviously, the answer is yes. We can relate these images to the world that surrounds us, and so can the children. And this method of relating an unknown concept, in this case the space of the keyboard, to images that the child knows very well from his past experiences and that he understands as related to one another in terms of higher, lower, and deeper, is the method used throughout the book to introduce the unfamiliar concepts. There is also a story that accompanies this illustration, which I'm going to tell you, but you can also use it to come up with your own story, or even better, to provoke students to come up with a story of his own. Anyways, the story in our book is entitled Keyboard Land, and what we find out in the story is that Keyboard Land is very much a place like the place we live in. It has high mountains, there is sky, and there are deep oceans, and there is also life in Keyboard. And the inhabitants of that Keyboard are 7 best friends, 7 pitches who have funny names, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And what those pitches like to do the most is they like to explore their land. So they build themselves 7 houses, they build themselves an airplane, submarine, ship, and so on. And they all travel to all these places in order to see what there is. And this is true for every space on the keyboard, with the exception of the 2 extremes, because they are not all equally brave. Only the 2 bravest ones, A and B, they're to go all the way down and explore the central ship. And in the same way, only Tom C likes to fly more than anybody else, so he bought himself a space shuttle, and he flies all the way up into the space. So what we want children to do on the basis of this illustration is actually go to the piano and play these various registers after a set of count tasks. And we want to have a dialogue with them, to ask them, so what do you notice? Does the color change in this keyboard world as you travel from one place to another? Do pitches feel differently when they fly up in the sky or when they dive? And what follows in the next pages is a set of tasks in which child breaks this keyboard into separate octaves and finds out that C lives at the bottom of each octave and B lives at the top of each octave. And then he arrives at this stage. This is the first first page where the child actually clearly sees all pitches placed above one another in an individual octave. And the task here is to place the stickers and write in the missing names of the pitches. I would like you to notice that, first of all, the colors associated with particular key are consistent throughout the book. So we will later on use the same colors to introduce the notes on the stamp. Another thing I would like you to notice is that the complexity of the task increases from the first section to the last one. Less and less things are given, and there is more and more for a child to fill in on his own. The third thing I would like you to notice is the fact that we break this keyboard into two segments, and the reason we do so is because we want to lead child to start entertaining the idea that actually what we use for orientation of the keyboard are the black keys. We do not provide this information for the child priorly, but we do give him a confirmation of such an observance in the page that follows, which features this illustration. Actually, the doggy figuring out, well, the black keys are the signs of orientation on the keyboard. And the task on the following page is for a child to identify the white keys solely based on their location in relation to the black keys. There are no more colors and there are no more illustrations of pitches. Towards the end of the chapter, there is the first didactic card game. It is a memory game. And in order to play this game, you should find the cards in the middle of the book, cut them out, lay them face down on a flat surface, and take turns in flipping two cards over, searching for pairs. The winner is the one who collects more pairs. And I'm sure you're all noticing that it is possible to make pairs just based on color. And that is absolutely intentional. Because this is not a test. The test is something that concludes the chapter. This is a didactic game, and what we want children to experience is we want them to experience learning as something they're successful in right away. And there are numerous ways to make this game more complex. For example, once you've established the child has reached a level of comfort, you can ask him to say the name of the key that he pulls out while the cards from the lower set. Or you can use only the cards from the upper set, have child randomly pull one or two and go to the piano, play that one, particular key. Then you can play the dynamics and different registers and so on. And there is one, for me, very beautiful thing that we noticed when we use these cards in our own teaching, and that is the creativity and the freedom of thinking that children possess. Because every particular child would invent a game of his own once given the card. So really, all we need to do is to give them the tools and the children know how to play. And that makes it much easier for us as teachers to learn the new things because they actually enjoy this process of learning the names of the keys in this particular instance. The reason we decided to devote the entire chapter only to the exploration of the keyboard is, first of all, because being familiar with the keyboard makes it easier for a child to learn and memorize pieces he's playing by ears. And second of all, it makes the introduction of the symbols of music notation easier because child will relate this unknown musical alphabet to the space he knows, and that is the space of the keyboard. And the introduction of those symbols of music notation is the focus of the 3 chapters that follow. In this child will learn to distinguish by ear and also in written form between the symbols we use for volume of sound, length of sound, and height of sound. And here I'm going to stop with slides for a second, just in order to explain the reasons why we chose to address these in 3 separate chapters. And the reason is actually the fact that when working with a particular age group, what we as pedagogues have to have in mind is a particular stage of cognitive development that a child of certain age is reached. So because this is a book intended for young beginners, and those are often children 5 or 6 years old, what we have to know about that is that every child is told is actually has reached the stage of cognitive development that enables him to follow only 2 qualities of an object simultaneously. So he can follow color and size, or shape and size, but he cannot simultaneously follow all those 3. And I would like you to think for a moment about the musical text and how many parameters there are that we expect children to follow in order to successfully read a piece of music. Well, apparently maybe more than 2, because every note that is placed in the stand is already a symbol of a certain length and of a certain height. But then when we talk about piano music, we expect children to follow these in 2 separate systems, a treble clef and a bass clef from the very beginning. And we all know that reading music is not just cognitive, it is also motoric and sensory activity. So what children need to read in that musical text is also which hand to use and which finger to use, and eventually to control the sound they are producing by ear. So we wanted to make sure that they clearly understand each of these individually before we ask them to follow them simultaneously, which they can succeed in providing enough exercise and enough time. So the first set of signs we explore is set of dynamic markings. Oh, okay. We got to mix that up again. Well, thank you for being patient. So, welcome again. So we have arrived at the chapter entitled Volume of Sound. And the reason why we choose to introduce the dynamic markings first is not because we want our pupils to know forte and piano first, but because playing loudly and softly is actually one of the very few things every child can do right away when they arrive to their first piano lesson. So we want to relate exactly their successful at with a set of symbols of music notation. And we achieve that by posing this logical task. The task is to associate a particular image with sound, with F sign if it is loud, or P if it is soft, and it's not just a section of the problem. And what we want children to do is to go to the piano and actually create some kind of sound image for each of these illustrations. We want them to use these images as a basis of making up their own pieces of music. And as you see, with some of these it is very easy to do. For example, it's very easy to tone paint the thumb. Okay, just go and do like this. Choose the proper volume and we add the register. But some of the other ones are a little bit more tricky. For example, the cat sleeping. And they ask for more imagination on child's side. So we can actually begin the dialogue with them and ask them, so how can you use the sound of the piano to portray a cat sleeping? Maybe the cat is dreaming about something. Maybe you can portray the cat's dream. And in a similar way introduce the concept of crescendo and decrescendo. And really the important lesson the child learns by working on this chapter is that dynamic is an extremely important expressive quality of music. Forte and piano are not just kinds per se, but we use dynamic to express ideas that are meaningful to us, that we understand, and that we want our audiences to understand as well. The next chapter is entitled The Length of Sound. And at the beginning, we want to focus child's attention on understanding the concept of length in the sound of music. And as we all know, that implies 2 related characteristics. So first of all, it is the continuous sound, and then it is the imagined pulsation underneath that enables us to measure the length of particular sound. And these two logical tasks focus child attention precisely on those two. Child's also going to place the stickers in the appropriate places. The first one focuses his attention on the continuous sound, and the second one wants child to relate this continuous sound to the number of claps or beats. And that is indicated in the comic, where children invite the puppy to join them and the child as well in their party, and they want them to kind of perform this little chart by doing la, 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 la. And by doing so, child begins to understand that actually when we talk about the length of an individual sound of music, we talk about these two things. We talk about singing or sound, and we talk about these beats that are underneath that sound. The introduction of notes happens in the comic. What happens is that Puppy arrives to the note signs and he gets very interested in learning how to write them. So in the task immediately following this section of the comic is the task in which child also begins to learn how to write notes by connecting the dashes and coloring an indicated number of note heads. And by doing so, child notices that, well, notes are not all different. They're all the same. They're different. And the puppy notices the same thing. So he goes to the girl and he asks her for an explanation. And what the girl tells him is, well, the notes are different, the time values are different, because they indicate different length of sound. So in the text that follow, we want child to associate these symbols of time values with a number of waves and claps, and eventually with abstract numbers. And I would like you to notice that these tasks are all slightly different from one another. In the first one, we need to place stickers. In the second one, we need to connect the two objects that form a group. In the third one, we need to write in the numbers. And the reason this is so is because such versatility of tasks ensures that the concentration levels of child will be satisfactory. And it also helps us as a teacher test to which extent the child has understood a particular symbol. Because only once a child is capable to interpret the symbol placed in various contexts can we be sure that he has gained a sufficient level of understanding of that particular symbol. In a similar way, we introduce rests. And both of these units end with make up your own rhythm, tune, and listening games. In order to play these games, child needs to take, again, cards from the middle of the book, randomly pick two, and go to the piano and play, for example. If you want, you can take this further and make child play, engage different keys. What you will notice when you take these cards is that children will not take two cards, they will want to take 3 and 4 and eventually use all of them. So this is a really good way to have them want to practice how to read different rhythmic figures. And in the listening game is slightly different. The child again chooses two cards, he gives you both of them, but you as a teacher choose the one that you want to play, and the task of the child is to recognize which one you play. So this is to practice oral recognition of certain rhythmical patterns. And what child notices as he plays these games is that all these cards have the same number of beats, and that brings us to another important lesson in this chapter, that is bar and time signature. And the way we introduce the bar as a group of beats is to relay this unknown concept to an image that child understands very well, and that is the image of the house. So the task here is for child to transform the house into a particular measure, into a particular bar, and to do that in 3 steps. The first thing he needs to do is to count the windows. 1, on each house. Then in the place of windows, he needs to write the water notes. And eventually, he needs to imagine that all that is left from the house are the walls. Those are our lines. And then to translate each of these houses into a particular farm by putting water notes in place of windows.